Hello guys, David Vose here again. Well, it's a beautiful day. There's a lot of clouds. It rained a little bit already, but it's beautiful and it's cool weather. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Today we're going to do like a part 2 on what we were talking about yesterday. I am so disappointed that, very few people are watching these videos because I don't know. I don't know if people just don't know what this information is. Obviously, they don't know that we're doing these videos because I know people don't like to watch long videos. They're all an hour long, and it's like a big history class. I mean, we ain't got time for this. I get that. But it's still so crazy to think that this information is so important. And I've got people who watch my videos all the time. Like yesterday, somebody commented, say, hey, I ain't got time for this. I only went 10 minutes into that and shut it off. Man, that was boring. Well, if it's boring to you, then you're not interested in finding information. It's hard to find information. You got to weed through a lot of things to get to the prize. And if you're really interested in knowing the history of the United States, today we're going to find out a little bit more about Donald Trump and what he's doing down there in Mar-a-Lago and what that place actually means and what it is and what this has to do with his plan to take over Greenland and the Panama and Mexico and maybe recreate the Golden Circle. Well, we'll talk about that. And I guess I just want to kind of get right into it. So let me just start off by showing you something that I found on the internet. Just kind of get into some little information here. And please share this video with everyone you can. I'd like to get this information out. It's crucial. If people could understand our history and what's really going on, we wouldn't be able to get taken over so badly and so deceived as we are, because we're finding real truth. There's real information, and we can find out what's going on behind the scenes. I know people want to believe that everything's going to be fine and Donald Trump's going to make America great again. But what we want to know is, when is Jesus coming back? When is his kingdom going to be established on earth? And we want to have information that will confirm our faith within us that we were taught from the time we were young. Is it true? Is the Bible true? Is Jesus coming soon? And what are these guys running the world doing? Well, we're going to show you here today some more information that will help you determine that. So, I found this article. What's the difference between M15 and M16? What happened to M, and I'm not sure if that's an MI1 or an ML1, I'm not quite sure. But we'll just call it MI1, MI4, maybe it's M14, M11. Oh, okay. What happened to M11 through M14? Remember, these gang members are M13s, or what, isn't that what it says? MS-13s or something. It says, I believe the difference is like the FBI and the CIA in the USA. Everything's got 3 numbers or 3 letters. One is for domestic intelligence and one is for international intelligence. But I'm not sure which one is which. I also think that some of the other numbers may have been active in intelligence and of the like during the world wars. Military intelligence, MI, okay, had agencies numbered up to 19, but not all at the same time. Most were folded into M15, M16, or GCHQ after the war. I've found the following after a few web searches. MI1, code breaking, MI2, which looks like M12, Russia and Scandinavia, M13, Eastern Europe. M14, aerial reconnaissance. M18, military communication interception. M19, undercover operations. MI10, weapons analysis. MI14, MI15, German specialists. MI19, POW debriefing. MI17, military intelligence head office. Conspiracy theorists will have you believe that there is still a clandestine M17 dealing with matters extraterrestrial. So look, the British Security Service was M16. M15 is the British Security Service, while M16 is the British Foreign Intelligence Service. Crudely, M16 are our spies' value, while M15 is theirs to catch their spies. So, I'm not going to read all of this, but you can see all these different organizations, the NSA, the NCIS, the FBI, the CIA, and the SS of the German army, which was Secret Service, and the Secret Service were originally the KGC, the Knights of the Golden Circle, were originally called the Secret Service. And so one of the names of the Knights of the Golden Circle was the American Legion. I know. And the American Legion is now got 2 million men strong in the Americas, and it is made up of military officers, I guess, that retire or veterans. And so when you go through the military and you become a veteran and you're still holding secrets and you're loyal, and then you finally get to a place where you become part of the elite, perhaps the American Legion, and you can't just go to their meetings. Maybe there's secret things going on. I haven't gone into the American Legion, but I will say that there was a seal or like a coin that had the guy that founded the KGC, his name on this seal, Bickley, George G. L. Bickley. And on one side of the coin, he calls this organization the American Legion, as well as the Knights of the Golden Circle. It was called the American Legions right on the seal. So George L. Bickley was supposedly the founder of the KGC, but I believe he was a co-founder. It's very evident that Albert Pike, who founded the KKK at the same time, is one of the founders and organizers of the KGC as well. So I'm just wondering about all these gangs here in America called M13, and I believe they're certainly being orchestrated or organized by the British or the American intelligence. Probably they're both being orchestrated by the Illuminati, or the Masons or whatever, the highest of which is probably the Bavarian Illuminati that meet somewhere in California at the owl sacrifice altar. And have another name very similar to Bavarian called Bohemian, which is two areas over there near Germany that used to live there, where they used to hold their Illuminati meetings and so forth. But they have these agencies all over. And some of them they just create for a short period of time, like in a succession or a series. They always call everything the same thing. So when World War II ended, the SS was just a department in Germany. And they used to do projects and operations, Then from that point forward in America, we continued on with the projects like Project Bluebeam and Operation this and Project that and Project Paperclip and these things, bringing the people, one of which was Einstein, over here. Well, Did you know that Einstein was on the board of the Wilhelm Institute? Did you know that the Wilhelm Institute started around 1909 or something, just before World War II, as a way to build up um, some kind of a science community? And they were scientists. They were investigating what kind of means scientifically that they could overthrow the world. They came up with a nuclear bomb, but they came up with other things. It was the original department or science department of the government propaganda, shadow clandestine government organizations, that one was for military, one was for spying, and this one was for developing whatever chemicals or mass destruction or pharmaceutical or whatever. So everything that's been going on in the world, clandestine chemical problems and nuclear and all these kinds of things, gases, and maybe even lab things, which we won't say much more about that, were literally created originally from the place where all this propaganda got started, which is the Wilhelm Institute, which is like their secret government agency to bring forth all of this craziness in the world. So out of that area around Bavaria, where these Wilhelm Institute and stuff was going on, they were choosing and selecting certain individuals, like Einstein. They weren't just some poor peasant that was involved in this. Einstein did not invent all of his science that he was supposedly behind, like E equals MC squared and relativity and all of this. These guys may have been physicists. He may have, somebody told him, and he probably kind of understood what he was writing on the chalkboard. They're all sitting around thinking about other dimensions and imploding and exploding and dark matter and all these other crazy things, but they're just like you and I. They don't know much. But whoever runs the world, they have these mad scientists working somewhere, like in the Wilhelm Institute or in a lab somewhere in Los Alamos or something, coming up with these ways to destroy mankind. And they head these departments with their brethren, with their relatives. So no matter what it might be, Google, Facebook, which is part of the CIA operations to have control over the people, Google, they're the Goggle brothers, Bezos in his space program, Elon in his space program. They don't know anything about space or electricity or energy or science. They wouldn't know philosophically whether it makes any sense that the stars are light years away. They don't have this intelligence like what we're talking about. They're simply people that do what they're told. They work their way up the ranks. They're faithful. They're under oath. They keep the secrets. And they're relatives of the highest royal bloodlines. They want to keep it in the family. So they're all working together. Anyway, so I asked AI. Notice on the top left, it says AI mode. They added that to my Chrome and said I'm the first one, and they're going to, I guess, help me. I'm going to test out the new AI that's going to go worldwide. And it's on my phone, and they're listening to all my questions and trying to answer me. I think they're pretty interested in all of this, too. Because I'm really curious about this monastery from the 12th century that was brought over from Spain and rebuilt in Florida and the Bahamas. So I said, pictures or newspaper articles showing proof that the cloister of St. Bernard of Clairvaux was rebuilt in Florida. And this is AI giving me their answer. The monastery of St. Bernard de Clairvaux, originally built in Sacramento. Doesn't that sound like Sacramento, California? Well, what's interesting is that word is the sacrament, which is the holy meal, the sacramental duties of the king and the priest. Goes back to the Roman Rex Sacrorum. The Rex meant the king, and he was the king of the Sacrorum, or the sacred duties. And so it makes me think, well, when they name these places, originally in Spain, Sacramenia, where the Knights Templars began, and they built this monastery and temple, they knew they were calling it the city Sacramenia. They knew it was the sacramental role of the Knights of St. John. They're in Spain. And when they came to California, they renamed the capital of California Sacramento. So I think that's also interesting. But they say it was indeed dismantled from Spain and rebuilt in North Miami Beach, Florida. It is now known as the Ancient Spanish Monastery. Here's a summary of the monastery's journey and some key pieces of evidence. History. 1133, interesting, maybe has something to do with the 33rd degree. And when the KGC, the Knights of the Golden Circle, began, they didn't want to use the 33rd degree or the 33 anymore. So they used 311, which would be 311s. 11 and 11 and 11 is 33. So there's a lot of numbers that have 11s at the end. It has to do with this, maybe even 911, because some of these things are done in succession. They'll name something as a reminder of something that they did in the past. Like, okay, that was the first try. Then we did the second try, and now they're up to 1100, or something. But it was in Segovia, Spain, the early 20th century, due to social and political turmoil. The monastery was abandoned and fell into disrepair. 1925, William Randolph Hearst purchased the monastery and had it dismantled and shipped to the United States. Randolph Hearst is a very crazy individual. I don't know if I even had heard of him, but he was a very rich man, I believe, of this Bavarian ilk, and he lived down in that area and was he was very interested in these buildings from Spain. He brought that one over, supposedly, and another one he built in California or something, and other places. But he was interested in the news. He was the biggest magazine, newspaper editor or owner in the world or something at the time. He had bought up all the newspapers and all the news organizations. And there was a movie that was eventually made on him. I've heard of the movie. I'm trying to think of it right now. But it was a big movie back in the day about his life. Citizen Kane. So that movie, Citizen Kane, may be something we should watch to see what little secrets they're telling us in that movie about this. But he did indeed, they say, in 1925, dismantle and ship it to the United States. Years of storage. The stones were stored in a warehouse in Brooklyn, New York, for many years, where the Jehovah's Witnesses headquarters. 1950s, a wealthy entrepreneur purchased the stones and began the painstaking process of reconstruction. In 1953, the monastery was reassembled on its current site in North Miami Beach. So I asked about the evidence. They say, okay, evidence of the rebuilding, photos and videos. Okay, show us. Numerous photos and videos document the monastery's structure in Florida, but they didn't say the building or the construction, just that you can see pictures today where there it stands, the proof that it's there. But what I want to know is there any pictures of them rebuilding it? I mean, if it was in the 1950s, there should be some pictures or some newspaper articles showing that they were rebuilding it. We should have some documented evidence. It says you can find images of its cloisters, arches, and other distinctive features that are consistent with its original Spanish design. Yes, but that only proves that it exists. Do you also have proof that it existed in Spain at one time? Do we have pictures of that in 1200? I don't know. Articles and newspaper reports. Historical news articles and reports from the time detail the monastery's purchase, dismantling, shipment, and eventual rebuilding in Florida, but they don't give us all of this evidence and proof. They just say it exists. So I'm going to do some investigating here and see if they can lead me to this articles and news reports. The monastery's website and tours, the official website and guided tours of the ancient Spanish monastery in Florida, openly discuss and show the history of the building, including its reconstruction. So I'm going to go to that website here in a second. Note the cloisters, a key architectural feature of the monastery, was clearly visible in photographs of the ancient Spanish monastery in North Miami Beach. These cloisters are a direct part of the original monastery, but they don't show you the pictures, and that wouldn't do me any good to just see a picture of it. I know it's there. I want to see pictures of them building it there, or newspaper articles or evidence. So the first thing I want to do here is, what is this little clip here? Photos and videos. And they show you the Smithsonian, or a Smart History Creative Iconoclasm, A Tale of Two Monasteries. Take a look at that. Certainly looks old, doesn't it? Tale of Two Monasteries. The restoration and ruination. All right, so here's some 50th anniversary of the Venice Charter, 2014. Annual report of the International Council on Monuments. Doesn't look like any kind of proof that I would want. William Hurst. Looks a little bit like Aleister Crowley, doesn't he? Here's a picture of the church, facade, Monastery of St. Bernard de Clairvaux, 1133, before the 1923 removal of several monastic buildings and their reconstruction in North Miami Beach, Florida. The church is still in situ. So supposedly there's a picture, but I don't know that it's in Spain. They don't prove that. And it doesn't even look like the same one that they rebuilt. You know, that's not good proof for me, because I don't know what to do with that picture. California State Historical Monument at San Simeon, Hearst Castle. That's another one of his castles that he built in California, I guess. I don't think he claimed that that one was originally in Spain, but that's pretty magnificent itself. Okay, here is the Sunday Telegram, Section 8. 19 months needed to assemble the old edifice. 813-year-old monastery is moved from Spain to Florida. What's the date on that? 1954. Sunday morning, June 12th, 1954. So we do have an article in the paper saying they moved it. It took 19 months. Can you imagine rebuilding that, taking it down, putting it on ships? I mean, can you imagine? How many ships do you think they needed? Here's another article. Stones of medieval monastery are many things more. Looks like a shrine, doesn't it? a very holy shrine. You can walk up, kind of like the Temple of Zeus, where they've got President Lincoln in Washington, D.C., in Zeus's temple, or Jupiter's temple. Centuries ago, Michael Ellis, what's the date on this? I'm not sure what the date of this is, but there's an article on it, but I don't know what it talks about. Writing's too little for me to really read. Here's the Spanish Inquisition, a battle royal over the stones of medieval monasteries, shipped here by William Randolph Hearst. So there is some articles saying that he did it. So I'll accept that, but the question still remains, why Florida and the Bahamas? And what does this have to do with the cube and the golden circle and the Templars and Clairvox and all of these other things? Can you imagine all these stones torn down and removed and taken across the sea? Crazy to me. Look at this. The Knights of the Golden Circle in Wikipedia. That's their flag. It's got these stars and stripes like our flag now. It's red, white, and blue, or dark color, sometimes black, I think. Well, the colors of Kentucky Fried Chicken are red, white, and black, or dark blue as well. And their signature sandwich is a KGC. Like, it's KFC is the name of their company, but their sandwich is something like a grilled cheese or something. Kentucky grilled cheese. I forget, but it's their signature sandwich, and it's written on the package KGC. But the Knights of the Golden Circle in the Texas state is the cross and the crown, which is Templar. The Templar crown is the cross going kind of crooked through a crown, which is the same symbol that Jehovah's Witnesses used It says here, the cross and crown symbol is also the key emblem of the Royal Black Institution, a sister organization of the Orange Order, a Protestant fraternity with structural and symbolic similarities to Freemasonry. The cross and crown symbol was also used by the Rexist Party. The Rexist Party. So what is the Rexit Party? Of Belgium. Interwar period. Fascism? National fascism? In Belgium, the Rexist Party, led by Leon de Grelle, it won about 10% of the seats in the parliament in 1936. Russian fascist organizations were founded by exiles in Manchuria, the United States, and elsewhere. The largest of these groups were the Russian Fascist Party, VFP. So it's Russian communist, it's Marxist, fascist, and they're using the Templar sign of the cross and crown, because originally the cross and crown was a Templar sign. In fact, on the watchtower, you can see, just look over to the right side, you see the knights there and the two swords of the Knights Templars. And so these Templars were starting all kinds of organizations, I guess including in Belgium a political party of fascists, which, other countries were fascists, Italy, and so forth at some point in time. But it seems that they were understanding they couldn't just take over the world. They had to do it slowly with organizations, clandestine programs, and Jehovah's Witnesses were definitely some kind of propaganda program they had to change our minds. They couldn't defeat us in the battle in the war field, but they had to defeat us in the battle in our minds. So Jehovah's Witnesses had it on all their literature, the Templar symbol, which Charles Russell claimed to be a 33-degree Freemason. That same symbol, the cross and crown, which is the Templar crown, which is the CGC or KGC sign, also was prominently displayed on the Christian Science literature, on their books. AI says the fact that slavery was legal in Cuba until 1886 led to Southern American interests, including a plan by the Knights of the Golden Circle to create a golden circle with a 1,200-mile radius centered on Havana, Cuba. Knights of the Golden Circle. Here is this coin. There's the flag. There's the territory that was going to be the Golden Circle, the center of which would have been Cuba. And here's this seal of the president of the Knights of the Golden Circle. And that's 1828, Union America Legion. Yeah, American Legion. If you see on the left, see in the middle it says Bickley. That was the founder of it here, the KGC. And on their original seal, it said American Legion. The American Legion. Which, remember, the Germans had the Secret Service. We've got a Secret Service in this country. And the Secret Service probably was M16, started in Britain or perhaps even in Germany, because there were certain secret services going all the way back through Germany. And all of these groups would have these letters, something like KGC or KKK. KKK was created by Albert Pike, who wrote Morals and Dogma and became the head guy in America over the whole Masonic order, the most prominent Master Mason, and he wrote all their doctrines in the Morals and Dogma. And he's the one that really changed the Scottish Rite quite a bit and changed the degrees. I guess they said he standardized them and so forth, but he really shook it up and made it his own. But the Scottish Rite originally didn't have 33 degrees. And the original rites of the Masons only had 3 degrees, which is kind of what you find in the Bible. In ancient times, they only had the 3 degrees. But they kept adding these degrees because they want to make it universal. And some of the lower degrees don't even know what they're doing. So they're just kind of bringing in under an umbrella all these other organizations and degrees and departments. And it's all in secrecy. But they made the 33 degrees in Charleston, South Carolina. So it was here that they began to do all the shenanigans. And these same people, like Albert Pike, was creating one of the co-founders of the KGC and the founder of the KKK. And who knows who founded the KGB? But could be Colonel Sanders, always dressed in white. And there's a little bit of information about, the guy that runs Wendy's. The word Wendy is from some Scandinavian word like Gwendol or something. It means the white girl. It's kind of like some people think it might be more healthy to eat there because it's for white people or something. But yeah, those and the Carl's Jr. guy, they were all 33-degree Masons, and they were all involved in trying to do something, maybe even poisoning the world or changing the way we eat. But a lot of these organizations started from Mormons. Mormons made the first KFC using Colonel Sanders' image. They kind of financed it. I think they had a lot to do with financing Coca-Cola and things like this. They're into all the potatoes and making these poison potatoes and setting up McDonald's, and Carl's Jr. had a lot, to do with all of these same individuals. But the Mormon secret society ran the West, and the Masons in the East. Jehovah's Witnesses were in the East, Brooklyn, and they were involved in all these big companies and cigarette companies and railroad companies and booze companies, all owned and run by clandestine organizations. So he came into America to disrupt the original knights like Washington. The original Templars were here. Many of them were good. There was a Bavarian Illuminati element that was taking over the Confederacy and had all this money, and were trying to get the money is what they were trying to do, and create a division between Americans. So they made both sides, the Northern the Republicans and the Democrats. They were on both sides, mussing with it. Joseph Smith was part of this only in that all these people were trying to figure out, they were Huguenots, they were coming from France and fleeing persecution. All of them knew about the New World and building the New Jerusalem, and Joseph Smith was a great leader at that time, I believe raised up as a prophet by the Lord to gather those who were of like mind, the remnant of those who were truly of the right heart from Mary Magdalene and these institutes, and saying, yeah, we're going to build the temple, and this is the Lord's plan, but it may not ever happen until you people have your heart straight and we get rid of these evil people trying to take over the organization and the world. You see, Joseph Smith was an abolitionist. He didn't believe in the slavery, so he wasn't of the same mind as these KGC pro-slavery people and this golden circle. But he did have an idea similar in that he would go to the Rocky Mountains and build the New Jerusalem. But you see, the KGC definitely wanted to destroy what Joseph Smith was doing, because I think that was the divine plan that is destined to eventually happen. But it was done in such a way that he sent prophets, and they, just like they always do, they murder them. So here's what we got today. The Illuminati, or those of the secret initiation rites back to Mary that have fallen, they've become unfaithful stewards, and they've got this plot. And they even killed the prophet who wanted to do the right thing, and they killed the prophet. Okay, this is the same story we've seen in the Bible time and time again. Prophets arise and say, let's do this and that, and then the bad guys rise and kill them and take it in the wrong direction. So they sent Albert Pike in to reform these original Masons and turn it into this KKK pro-slavery thing. Yeah, Albert Pike started the KKK and was probably one of the founders of the KGC. And I believe he sent Brigham Young, who was already a Mason from working over there in New York in the East with the Cochranites and the Polygamists and these other organizations that were probably from the York Rite and from the Viking peoples who were trying to infiltrate the good guys over here, the Huguenots, that had already come over Washington and Jefferson and so forth. And though there's no record, I guess they claim that they don't have any record of Albert Pike meeting Brigham Young, it's obvious that they were both steeped in this polygamy, same stuff that was going on ever since John Dee and Edward Kelly brought Satan up out of the bottomless pit for the British Empire to colonize the world for Satan. And immediately was told to swap wives and be polygamists and pedophiles. And make an altar and make sacrifices and build a temple, usually a Gothic temple like they built in Salt Lake City, if they really built it there. Although there were a couple of white Indian tribes that were there previous to them arriving. If you look at some of these temples that the Mormons built, they didn't just build that one in Salt Lake. There's Manti, Utah, and St. George, and all around, there's different temples. They're magnificent, amazing. But yeah, I suppose they could have built them. What? They had a few hundred people on horseback and a buggy. I don't think they had any elephants. I don't know how they did it, but carried the rocks down on stagecoach and got these people in a secret society under oath, and they built these things. Or they were under oath so they could steal it and found it, right? They founded it. But Brigham Young took the bad guys, took over the Masons with a evil plot, working in conjunction with Albert Pike to take over both sides. So the East Coast was taken over by the Masons and Albert Pike, and the West Coast was taken over by the West branch of this organization from Brigham Young, pedophilia. They had wives 9, 10, 12 years old. This is pedophilia. And they took over the government and everything going on. FBI is run by the Mormons. Now, it's interesting that the guy that's running the FBI right now is this Kash Patel. He was born in India. He looks Indian. But he lives in Salt Lake City. Now, if he lives in Salt Lake City and he's over the FBI, wouldn't it be plausible to say that he was voted in by people in the FBI who are all Mormon? And if you look at all these characters that supposedly hated Trump during this whole first presidency of Donald Trump, they're all clean-cut looking guys with white shirts. They look like Mormons. Very likely either were Mormons or associated with Mormons, because the Mormons are this big secret society that runs everything in California, Utah, Idaho, Nevada, New Mexico, all this area. These military bases and everything in these underground cities. There's an underground city in Toole, just outside of Salt Lake City. Huge, biggest underground city in the world with all this technological advancements and UFO ships. And the Mormons know all about it, but they don't tell anything because they're all under oath. They're all Mormons that work there, this clandestine programs. So it's odd then that they appoint this Kash Patel, who is seen in a photo going around in some black leather, tight leather. I'm not trying to stereotype, but it's what you will find in pictures of the gay movement, where they're trying to be risque and provocative. And in the picture, he's got his fingers painted purple. He's trying to say he's gay or something. Well, if you look it up on the internet, they'll say that's a Photoshop picture and it's not true. But I also found articles that said it is true, it's not Photoshopped, and that Kash Patel himself posted it, I think on X or something. But I don't know for sure if that's really him, so that may be Photoshop. But the point is, they're trying to say that Kash Patel is, and this part we know for sure, is living with a man. He's a grown man, and he's living with another grown man, and they have plenty of money to buy their own home, but they live together. And when asked about why they're living together, and if that's his partner, he won't comment. Kash Patel is living with a man in Las Vegas, where he's obviously around everyone that's Mormon, and they're controlling, the Mormons are controlling this whole thing. Harry Reid was from Las Vegas and was the Senate leader. So the Mormons run the whole thing. And the guy that he's living with, I can't remember his name right now, but he's like another Epstein. He's a big Republican donor, and he gets all of his money through shenanigans like Epstein did. And he's a crook. And he's people trying to investigate him, and they're shutting it down. So Trump knowingly put him in there. And he's going around saying he's taken out all these bad guys that hated Trump. They were all clean-cut Mormons. It's just a show. So look at this. The American Legion was founded March 15th, 1919 in Paris, France. The American Legion. Remember, that's what the KGC, the Knights of the Golden Circle, were called at their inception by this Bickley who created it and founded the KGC. On their seal, they're called the American Legion. And then in 1919, it sprouts up as the American Legion. Forget the KGC on the coin. They don't write the KGC. They just still got the American Legion, but it's Paris, France. And remember the seal that we saw with the KGC and the American Legion on one side? In the center, it had a star, but it was an 8-sided star. And the one they've got now for the American Legion is a 5-sided star. But there's still a star in the middle, and they're still using the term American Legion. But what an odd place to announce the birth of the American Legion in Paris, France in 1919. Because remember, it all goes back to France. So I asked, was the American Legion founded in France? I mean, it's American Legion, right? Well, yes, American Legion was founded in Paris, France on March 15th through the 17th, 1919. The first meeting, known as the Paris Caucus, was attended by delegates from the American Expeditionary Forces. The delegates adopted a temporary constitution and selected the name American Legion at this meeting. Wa la la. So the American Legion, which is, look, after all we've seen, there's no question they know what they're doing. It's the continuation of the KGC, 1919. It also says that in 1954, the American Legion Child Welfare Foundation was formed, which is an interesting date, 1954, for this reason. So, 1954. When was the KGB created? The KGB was established on March 13th, 1954. It was the main security agency for the Soviet Union from that date until its dissolution on December 3rd, 1991. Well, I'll be darned. It's also got a star in the middle and the 5-sided star, which is then at the bottom it's called the CCP. So yeah, they're all working together. AI says that there are several companies featuring the 5-sided star, sometimes within a circle, in their logos. These include Dodge, Texaco, Caltex. Dodge's logo is a pentastar, essentially a pentagon, with a 5-sided star inside. Texaco uses a red circle with a white 5-point star, and Caltex uses a Delta Star logo. Well, remember, the KGC was originally called the Lone Star, and today we've got Texas still having that flag. It was originally the name of the organization before it was KGC, and it was being used and flown in Florida, but now it's just Texas. But the Lone Star is that star. And by the way, the star is in the southern hemisphere. You can't even see it most of the time from the northern hemisphere. And if you look off into the darkness, into the south, into the regions of the lower heavens, because remember, the north is where the Lord sits. Down there in the south, the southern regions, the Bible says Orion and the regions of the south. Well, the deep regions of the south, there is this blank spot where there's no stars. It's kind of black. And there's this one lone star. It's very bright. And that's the lone star. So I guess that's Satan that was thrown out of heaven. He's not in heaven in the north. And he's not going around and around in the astrological constellations, but he's down in the southern hemisphere all by himself, the lone star. I guess it's the devil. I don't know. But I wonder how many other companies are using these stars. Let's take a look. So, yeah, they all have that star. But now, Subaru, that's a four-sided star. That's the Pleiades. But Toys R Us has a star in the middle of the R, which is backwards. Looks like, is that star from the NFL above it? Star Studios, Texaco, the Houston Astros, Dodge, Jeep, the coffee company with their green, looks like a mermaid lady. There's a star on her crown that's even called Starbucks. So Captain America, that his shield, that's got that five-sided star. So I guess America's being protected by the secret societies and their 5 stars and all of this stuff. But, you know, look at, there's Carl's Jr., again, 33rd degree Mason. Paramount Pictures, Converse, just every company you can think of. Heineken, that water, fuzzy water, Pellegrino, Ardman. But I wonder where that star comes from. Well, you know, to Christians and everybody looks at that and they say, oh, that's the devil, right? Okay, yeah, that's the devil. But what is the devil? What are they promoting there? It's astrology. That's Capricorn. The bottom of the wheel, the upside down cross. Because Judas Iscariot hung upside down on a cross and Jesus hung right side up. The summer solstice, the winter solstice, and that's what this Baphomet is. It's a depiction of the 4 fixed signs of the zodiac from the point of view of the dark side being the Lord. But we've got the communists using it and the capitalists using the same symbol, the upside down cross. But it started in 1954. Well, remember, the way they do this is they'll use letters. And so it'll be a series. So it was KGC, and now we're at KGB, A, B, C, right? This is why the KFC is just one letter off from KG. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So FG, they're one letter off. So B and C is one letter off. So KGB is another continuation of the KGC. Now, why do I say that other than these 3 letters? Well, look at this. In Wikipedia, there's their flag, the KGC, and there's the picture that we showed. Okay, so the golden circle is a sphere around Cuba. Cuba is a cube, and the circle is around it, and they square the cube. But when the KGC was dissolved after the Civil War, we know they didn't dissolve, they just disbanded. It's just part of this plan, and they'll call it something else down the road. Maybe KGC could become KGB. Well, isn't it interesting that Cuba is the only communist state anywhere near the United States? Why did the United States allow a communist Cuba off the coast of Florida? Mexico is run by our CIA. all of the El Chapo and this gang M13, which could go back to the M16, but all these numbers and all these letters, it would be ridiculous to think that the United States couldn't have said, look, we're not allowing communist Russia or the KGB to own a lot of South America, which is communist. Certainly the Germans went to Argentina and Brazil. A lot of different South American countries are communist or run by the Soviet Union or China or something. But it seems very odd that the KGC's headquarters was Cuba, and now it's run by the communist Russians. And what's really odd, now stop and think about this, and I've been thinking about this for a while, ever since I heard about it. This Guantanamo Bay. Why do we have this thing called the Guantanamo Bay where we put all these prisoners, these terrorists? We take them there and put them in a big cage, I guess. Why is it in Cuba? If the Cubans are communists and they don't like America and America don't like communists, then why is Putin, who obviously is in charge of Cuba, why is Putin allowing the Guantanamo Bay from the United States to be there? Why do we have a military base? Are we sharing technical information, clandestine information, secret information? Are we really all just one big government? And the KGB and the CIA and the FBI and all of these KGCs and the Masons all run it all, and they have these different programs, and they're playing us. There is no way in the world that Cuba, which was going to be the central location of the Golden Circle, named the Cube, that they claim, oh, it was some Native American word, Cube, and Havana. Baloney. Havana is literally a reference to the heavenly city and the squaring of the cube and all of this, just like they got a cube in Mecca. The cube is always a representation of Saturn. And Saturn is a star with, it's the Star of David thing. A six-sided star. And if you look at that star in this coin, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-sided star. So they're very into these kinds of things. They've got the pentagon, the 5 sides. You've got the 6 sides of the Star of Mogen David. And here we've got an 8-sided star. Some of these have to do with Pythagorean mathematical equations. Some of it's just symbols for them to know and you to find out. But right there we have the American Legion written right on it. And the American Legion is running and protecting the president here in America. The secret of the most secret societies that pretended to assassinate Trump a few months ago and whatever. By the way, did you know that the Secret Service was established by President Lincoln just the day before or the day he was shot? So that either means that President Lincoln knew they were trying to shoot him, and he created the little organization to protect him, but it didn't work. Or, and this is what I'm thinking, if you look at the picture between President Lincoln and the President of the Confederate Army, Jefferson Davis, they are identical matches. They look so much alike, I can't tell them apart. I wonder if it wasn't just some big show. Maybe Lincoln didn't get shot. Maybe, I'm hoping, and I think Lincoln was probably a good guy. But what's interesting is the guy that was president before Lincoln was Buchanan. James Buchanan, and he was a KGC member. And Booth, that shot Lincoln, was a KGC member. So it does seem like Lincoln wasn't going along with their program and they killed him. Maybe that's what they want us to think. But you don't think that if, like, it looks like there's two sides that are like brothers. They're working for the same family, both of the same lineage, brothers running both sides of the show. The northern side have President Lincoln. The southern side has Jefferson Davis, which is a little odd. It's Jefferson, but we got Thomas Jefferson too. But anyway, Jefferson Davis, they look exactly the same, and they're playing the same part. They're about the same age, same little beard, the same way they comb their hair, exactly everything the same. Here's a picture the best picture I could find where you could see them and compare them. Now, looking at them up close, I would say, no, they're probably not the same person. But what I'm amazed about is that when you look at individual features, look at the nose, it's so close. The face, the jaw, the sunken high cheekbones, and then the sunken mouth or whatever, the crevice from the nose down to the lip, it's very prominent. They wear the same basic beard, comb their hair the same. Obviously, Lincoln's a little older in that picture than Jefferson is. So put another 10 years on Jefferson there. And I've been trying to look to see if Jefferson had that little bump on his right crack coming down from one nostril, or whatever that you call that crack. But Lincoln always had that mole or whatever it is there, or wart or something. And it almost looks like you can see it in Jefferson Davis as well. But I don't necessarily think they're the same person. But boy, oh boy, why does both presidents dress the same, wear the same beard, look almost identical, unless it's choreographed and orchestrated? But I found this little clip that shows a picture of Albert Pike and his book, which is pretty interesting that he was literally a Confederate general. and all these Masons are going by his works, and he created the Ku Klux Klan. And a lot of the material in that book was really written by Judean peoples, But here's the thing. 3 years into the Civil War, the Union War Department, the Union, released an expose on the secret activities of the KGC, the Knights of the Golden Circle. The report identified Clement Vallandigham as the secret leader of the organization, which used many different names. Look at that man's face. Clement Vallandigham. Well, it failed to mention that Vallandigham's best friend was Edwin Stanton, head of the Union War Department. So Edwin Stanton, head of the Union War Department, head of the Union War, was best friends with this Clement Vallandigham's, who ran or was the founder of the KGC, or the Secret Service. And when you add to that the president of the United States before Lincoln was Buchanan, James Buchanan, who was a Knights of the Golden Circle member, and that this Master Jonas that was in Illinois initiating all these people into the Masonic order was also initiating them into the Golden Circle. And he is the one who initiated Joseph Smith, who was going to build the New Jerusalem. And that the guy that supposedly murdered at a play, who was like this big movie star, kind of like a Johnny Depp or some, in those days, he was this big movie star. And Lincoln and his wife went to see the play and got shot the day before, or that day, I think, he created the Secret Service. And it's still going, but they didn't protect him. But this Booth guy that shot him was also of the Knights of the Golden Circle. And the Golden Circle was a golden circle that surrounded a point in the middle they called the cube. And the heavenly city that they were going to make, or the capital, was Heaven, or Havana. And in 1954, they created the KGB, one letter off from KGC, which is now headquartered in Cuba, right next to Florida, a terrorist spy organization right off our coast. And they seem to be kind of a central communist capital for all these other communist countries around there. Brazil, Argentina, I don't know, Venezuela, all these countries around the Gulf, just like they had planned to do. And voila, the United States is now evidently on board, because it looks like they had already infiltrated the United States government. They were the Democrats and the Republicans, both sides. I mean, originally there was a party that didn't like slavery, an anti-slavery party, and then that got thrown out, and they created the Whig Party. And maybe these were the good guys trying to reform, but they got thrown out and it got relegated to Democrats and Republicans, which is just two sides of the same Masonic order that's running this country. They had their guys on both sides running it. And perhaps their main goal was to create the utopia and a civilization, or a one world government, or the golden circle. Some kind of a dictator communist plot. Perhaps they then truly did get rid of Kennedy and Lincoln and Washington, because they were the good guys, and Joseph Smith, who was not in on their plans. I don't know if he knew about the Golden Circle or what he knew about it, or even if he was really even initiated into it, because supposedly he became a 33-degree Mason the same year he died, right? And they put him in prison and killed him. Whoever Joseph Smith was, these guys, all of these guys coming over from Europe and the Huguenots and trying to build the New Jerusalem, they all loved Joseph Smith. Joseph Smith did miracles. He did not claim to be a polygamist. He was an abolitionist, and he was trying to build a loving kingdom of Christ on earth, building the New Jerusalem here. And it wasn't just a political thing for him. He was waiting for the Lord to come. But he said that the people of America would have to have this battle, this last war. He predicted civil war. Maybe we could understand how Joseph Smith might have been aware or knew the plot that South Carolina was going to secede from the Union in, 1861 or something. And he knew that, the date and everything. Maybe he had some knowledge of what these guys were doing. I think what it was is that it got this group they had a lot of good people in it, but they was an infiltration, and they took it over for evil purposes and murdered their enemies like Joseph Smith, Washington, Lincoln, and then Kennedy. So there were people trying to stop this evil plot, but I don't know that either side is fully and completely won. This is why there is some still effort to try and take over the world through some clandestine means to get rid of all dissent, so that they can never raise up this crazy idea of freedom ever again. I also think it's interesting to note that Trump is saying he wants to annex Panama Canal, which leads right to Cuba, and maybe Mexico and Canada. Well, Trudeau was supposed to have been Castro's son, and so I don't know, maybe they're trying to make the golden circle finally, where all of North America and South America is one big golden circle, and perhaps their little golden circle will go out into areas beyond. But It may also be that there'll be this little group here with the golden circle, and then there'll be Russia, which will have like Crimea as their center, or Ukraine, and they're going to, and then somehow the Middle East is going to have Israel as their center, or something like that. I wonder. I heard that there might be trying to make 4 different sections of the world, kind of, rather than just one section. But I don't know about that. I certainly know that Trump's trying to take Greenland, Canada, Mexico, and parts of, the Panama Canal and all the way down, who knows. And since he's got the Guantanamo Bay already set up, a military base in Cuba, well, I guess we'll have to see. I could see Trump saying, hey, we're not allowing this communist in Cuba no more. It's like the Bay of Pigs, and it'll be another big thing, and we'll take that over. And, also I wonder about Mar-a-Lago down there in Florida. Did you know that Mar-a-Lago is in Miami as well? Like just a few miles from this Knights Templar monastery they brought over from Spain that we were talking about. So this holy ancient temple created by the Knights Templar, with their lineages going back to Mary Magdalene. They bring this thing over and they build this monastery in Miami, North Miami Beach or something up in there. And right in the front yard of this huge monastery, they build Hollywood. The trees and the woods around there is a park. It's a holy place. And then right outside of that, a little north of Hollywood, is Mar-a-Lago, where Trump has his castle or whatever it is. I don't know. Maybe it's a coincidence, but I don't believe in coincidences, so it's a little bit more difficult for me to figure out unless I imagine that there's something going on. And I think there's something going on here, friends. What do you guys think? Anywho, looks like I'm almost an hour here. I'm going to just go ahead and leave it at that for today. There's a lot more I didn't get into. We'll be talking a lot more about this subject, give you some more updates on this. I still haven't gone into the KFC and the KKK and all the different individuals involved. We go a little deeper into that maybe tomorrow. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Hope you have a wonderful evening. May the Lord bless you all, guys, and we'll see you tomorrow. Have a good one.